Good to go.
All right, everybody, it's 1:34 in the PM, and I hereby call the May 10th, 2023 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals to order. Currently have 6 members present from a 7-member board. If you feel your petition needs to be heard by the full board, please let our staff know now, and we will table your petition until the next meeting when we have more board members in attendance. The Area Board of Zoning and Appeals meeting is being held in person and virtually in the 4th floor council chambers of the County City Building with Zoom video and phone teleconferencing options available as posted on website sjcindiana.com/agenda center. Regarding public comment, we will first ask for any public comment from those sitting in the chambers, then call on members of the public attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and or by messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask the board members state their name when making a motion and a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones as they will not disturb the meeting. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Tavernier,
Here.
Mr. Hawley,
Here.
Ms. Hannon, Mr. Velman,
Here.
Mr. Ritzma,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Schaefer.
Here.
6 present.
You want me to leave now or hear one?
It's honestly up to you.
It's up to
If-
you,
If
but
you think you have time to stay. you
Well,
should
let's
stay.
do one. Let's do petition number 1.
Okay.
All right. Can we have petition number 1, please?
Wayne W. Schaefer and Shirley A. Schaefer Revocable Trust. Location unaddressed. 20 plus or minus parcel on the south side of Madison Road, west of and abutting 16948 Madison Road as tabled. Requested action. Variance number 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 10 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for lot 1 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Variance number 2 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 10 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for lot 2 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Here's where I step up, Sid Schaefer, and recuse myself.
He's gone.
All right, so Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff with offices on the 11th floor of this building. Just by way of update from the last time you heard this 2 months ago, we did receive a copy of the judgment that was referenced by the petitioner. We found that the judgment in no way compels a split of this parcel, which is contrary to the zoning ordinance. Essentially, the judgment just suggests that this one particular distribution is acceptable, not necessarily that it is the only acceptable distribution. Consequently, staff is still recommending denial. We find that there's no practical difficulty for multiple reasons, really. For one, they could petition to have a alternative distribution where the 20-acre parcel is not split into 2 10-acre parcels. Alternatively, they could create a subdivision by right with 2 unbuildable outlots. And just in general, aside from the judgment, the parcel with the 20 acres still retains value, both as an agricultural parcel, as well as allowing for the building of 1 single family dwelling on that parcel. Turning to the state law criteria, we find that it would be detrimental to general welfare to allow the establishment of an additional residential use in the agricultural district beyond what is permitted by right, which effectively is what would happen if we allowed the lot area variances to allow 2 10-acre lots in what is presently a 20-acre lot. Criteria 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will be affected in a substantially adverse manner. When you look at this area specifically, it is characterized by limited residential development and large lot sizes. Therefore, it's one of the more viable areas in the county for agriculture as far as development goes. If you look at the 2 miles between State Road 931 and Ironwood Road, there are very few houses which were constructed post 1950s. After the 20-acre rule in 1979, there were only 4 houses constructed, and actually 2 of those were constructed post 1990, those being constructed on 20 acres and 40 acres. So if you look at this stretch of Madison Road between Ironwood and 931, there's actually no properties that have ever received lot area variances within that stretch of road. Turning now to the third criteria, we find that there's no practical difficulty in the strict application of the zoning ordinance, because as I mentioned, this parcel still is viable as agricultural property, given that it's in close proximity to large acreage parcels, and one single family dwelling can be built per the zoning ordinance. Turning to the judgment specifically, as I said, they can petition for a different distribution, which does not require this parcel to be split. And they also have the option, if they want to comply with that distribution, of splitting it into 2 10-acre outlots, which are unbuildable through a subdivision. This actually would accomplish what the petitioner attempted to do early on. They did record a survey and then take it to the auditor's office to split the parcel into 2 10-acre parcels. This would have resulted in 2 unbuildable 10-acre parcels had the auditor not flagged it for not complying with the subdivision ordinance and essentially kicking it back for that reason. So if it would have slipped by for a split not happening within the subdivision ordinance, it would have been the same result, essentially 2 unbuildable lots. So staff would support a subdivision establishing 2 unbuildable outlots, and I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And as the BZA attorney, Brandy Ecker, I would make a slight revision to the description of what the judgment actually did. The trustee in that case proposed a plan of distribution that included this split. And the court basically said, go ahead and do your plan. It didn't say anything about do your plan in violation of any particular ordinance that might exist. It didn't say the ABZA has to let you do the plan as you've proposed or as you particularly want it to be. So the way to read it would be the trustee was ordered in this case to distribute the property in this trust in a manner that complies with both their plan and the existing law. So their way to do that is to ask permission from you to do it, or to do the 2 outlot solution, or as Sean suggested, go back to the court and say, we've been told by St. Joseph County that we can't split it in this manner. We need to change our plan.
Which would essentially be a denial.
I mean, if you deny them and they don't want to take the outlot option, that would be what would be left.
You guys got any questions?
Nope.
No. Terry?
Yes, Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue in South Bend. I will address some of the questions that Sean had. The attorney for the trust that presented it before the court will take care of the legal questions with regards to those items. First, I'd like to address the concern that the staff has said that this would kind of be irregular for that 2-mile stretch. I went to the county GIS site and counted 18 parcels that are smaller than 20 acres in that area between that 2-mile stretch right there. They may not have all had buildable homes placed on them by permits pulled that Sean had indicated, but there are parcels that size or smaller located in the area. So we're not doing anything that's different than what's in that area currently along that 2-mile stretch right there. The second concern was, yeah, there is, a viable alternative to create outlots for the piece right here. But that doesn't help either of the two parties that are receiving the 10-acre pieces with regards to that. The paperwork that I passed out earlier was some guidelines that had been set out by the Soil Conservation Service and the Farm Bureau conglomeration that basically indicated that, this split is not going to be detrimental to the area at all. The fact that home sites are actually at a loss in the county right now because of developed lots don't exist. The fact that, there's farm ground on each side of this, larger parcels, smaller parcels, for a 10-acre piece, as at the public hearing that we had earlier 2 months ago, there was, I believe, 0 people that showed up in remonstrance to the petition. So the concern that it devalues the neighborhood is kind of a moot point with regards to that. The size of farm equipment right now, as some of the agricultural people in the area can indicate, a 10-acre piece to pull your equipment in. Nowadays, your planters are, 100-foot wide, planting, 50 rows at a time. That type of equipment is being used on the parcels out there, and to be able to turn around on a 10-acre piece, that's going to be almost next to impossible to be able to do that, to make it a feasible piece to justify them coming from some other location, pulling in on site and utilize this in an agricultural type manner. So the fact that it's, a smaller piece that would be created and there's a lack and need for parcels, the fact that there are 18 of them in that 2-mile stretch, I believe the argument that they're making that it's detrimental to the area is in fact incorrect. Like I said, at that last meeting 2 months ago, we had 0 people show up to remonstrate against it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to turn it over to the attorney that was involved with regards to this, and he can do the legal portion of that so that you'll understand that portion of it. So.
Good afternoon, Frank Augustino, 131 South Taylor Street. The attorney representing Sydney Schaefer. Just to give you a little background on this property, it was owned by the Schaefer parents. Sydney Schaefer's mother and father owned that property. They placed that property into a trust. They placed Sydney Schaefer's sister, Tony Schaefer, in charge of that trust and authorized her to make the distributions from the trust. Tony Schaefer made a proposed distribution that split this 20-acre property down the middle in 10 and 10. I objected to that on behalf of Mr. Schaefer. Mr. Terry Lang, who did the survey work on that, pointed that out to Tony Schaefer and her attorney, Pat Hackett, and said, this is going to cause a problem. You need to change the distribution. That was ignored. We went to trial over this matter. We presented the same arguments that splitting this property into 2 10-acre parcels creates a problem. The judge ignored that and ordered the property distributed. Now, did the judge specifically tell the BZA what they could or couldn't do? No, he didn't do that. But this is Sid Schaefer making an application so he can enjoy the economic use of that property. You had Mr. Lang testify that he can't really lease that out to someone independently to come and farm it with the size of the current machinery that's used. He'd be forced to tie himself to any neighbor on one side or the other to try and farm that property. If he wants to sell it as a homestead and with 20 acres, he needs to partner with the sister, and this is the sister who refuses to change her mind about it. There is not an option of going back to the court and asking the court to order something else. The court has made an order. 30 days have passed since that order. That order is not appealable at this point in time. This is what the court ordered. This is what Mr. Schaefer is stuck with. He didn't want it. He complained about it to the trustee, complained about the judge. All his complaints were ignored. Now he's here before you as the Board of Zoning, and he's asking you to preserve his economic value in the property. His best way to do that is if it's a lot that he could sell it and possibly sell it as a residential lot. That's what he's asking you. As a legal matter, if you choose not to approve that, we would ask you to do the second option and make it an outlot on that. Any questions about what happened legally in that proceeding?
Guys got any questions? Nope. Nope. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody in the? This keeps going in and out, just so you know. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Name and address, please, in 5 minutes.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dolores Sullivan. I live at 60250 Myrtle Road in South Bend, 46614. I just have some papers for you. These are just some things that the general public had issued. Ideas and, well, they're sort of ideas on what this is about, we're talking about. I'd like to tell you that there are some answers that the general public came up with on how to handle the comprehensive plan for the county. The last time this was assessed was 1979. It's been like 45 years, so maybe that needs to be reviewed again. The 20-acre rule is not working for a lot of people. There's a lot more people now here. My grandparents and they were raised in the county and never had 20-acre pieces of property where the 5-acre properties parcels were sufficient for raising animals, for food, and for the 4-H, as well as for gardening. I've had multiple kids whom had, because of this 20-acre rule, had to move away further, which is upsetting to me because now I have to go farther away to see my grandkids. But anyway, I don't think this 20 acres rules to build a home on is sufficient anymore. The people who have got 20 acres build big houses on them and they waste most of the property and let it go to brush because of this rule, and as well as not being sufficiently used for cultivation or agricultural use for food. In my belief, a so-called mini farm would be sufficient in a 5 to 10 acre parcel. Just for one fact, if your house burnt down on this 20 acre parcel, you would not be able to build another house on that. What's the point in that? Okay, just a couple things for you to, I'm done. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? How are we doing this?
No.
Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none, public portion is now closed. Got anything to?
I have just a little bit to add to the presentation. As the gal previous to my presentation here had indicated, a parcel that is 10 acres in size with a home, farm animals, 4-H is still an agricultural use of the property. And that's kind of the whole intent of this presentation, was to be able to create a parcel that still has value for the property owner and would also be able to be used for a home, possibly farm animals for a 10 acre piece or 4-H animals. So those are options that we're looking to expound upon in this stretch of 18 parcels in that area that are currently that size or smaller than the 20 acre requirement. So I don't have anything additional. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have with regards to that.
Okay. You guys got anything further? No? Donnie, you got anything? All right, thanks.
Thank
Dave.
you.
I do have a question for Randy. So the outlot opportunity here, so if we were to say that we approve the variance as requested, subject to being both 10-acre parcels being designated as outlots. Is that acceptable?
My understanding is that the outlot option wouldn't require a variance. Is that,
That's correct. There's no minimum lot size for outlots, so
so essentially that would just be denying it.
Cause they can do it by right.
correct.
Okay, then. So some interesting facts here. So I never thought about the point that the young lady brought up about a 20-acre parcel that somebody builds a house on. What does happen with that farmland? If they're not leasing that to somebody else that does farm that, is it actually taking out of agricultural use because of not negligence, but just the inability to do it? And so if you can divide a lot up into two still buildable lots, that's a better tax base for the county. It still does leave that property available for tillage if they choose to do that. But it does provide another buildable lot, which is what is against the ordinance. And in this case is what the ordinance is trying to keep from happening. But how bad is that really?
That's where that's how I feel too. What you're saying, how bad is it really?
I mean,
Well, it's sort of like the difference between, we're here to try to interpret, not create. That's the dilemma.
interpret,
The rules, not create.
Okay.
Or change them.
and this is so if we're gonna do that, it's a very unique circumstance we're running to here as well then too, is our job is to allow those.
We're running into it a lot.
We are, that's why we're looking at changing the rules too, so. It's a dynamic it's interesting because I am all in favor of more people paying taxes into the county to help offset maybe I don't have to pay as much taxes then, they don't raise them as much. So buildable lot does raise that opportunity for us. It does. I just don't know how objectionable it is overall. Obviously, there were no demonstrators here as well too about dividing this up when it looks like the two lots next to it, one's a 10, one's less than a 10, both have houses right on them right next door as well too.
If it is at all helpful to you, what I would say about the existence of the court order in this matter is it doesn't have any force upon you. But if you were to see it that way, I believe that you could justify considering the existence of this order and the difficulty it would involve to do something different than what it says. That would probably fall under practical difficulty if you saw it that way.
I was just thinking that. And if you take that thought the one step farther, it is truly, if you want to use the term highest and best, the most value as a buildable lot. Unless it was 100 acres, we were splitting in half, then it would be agricultural highest and best use if we were the most then.
Right, because if I recall, we had a letter, the original 2 months ago from someone that was tilling something more current or local. And they said anything under 30 really isn't feasible to till on.
Yeah.
So even a 20 is not
No.
good. So.
It isn't.
Bob, you got anything to add?
I agree with.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the 20-acre rule. As a builder, it's horrible.
that's your own
What I
bias.
would say is you should not justify your decision based on the fact that you don't like the rule.
No, I understand.
You need to justify it based on the three criteria that are.
I think I have sufficiently justified it for an exception to the rule, not because I don't like the
Yeah,
rule. And I'm okay with the rule.
It's
because it is-
difficult. It's a difficult rule, and I did not mean that
Just making sure.
like I was voting that way. I was just saying.
So, Mr. Chairman, with all that being said, and the good discussion with the board, I would make a motion. As Joe Velman, I would make a motion to approve variance as requested for 2 10-acre lots off the 20.
Donnie Ritzmel, second.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Bellman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier.
I will say no. But based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds or grants this variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
You leaving?
I am.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Then tell Sid to come back in.
For the record, DJ has to leave.
Yep.
And Bob will chair the meeting. Robert Hawley will chair the meeting as vice president.
Sorry about this.
No worries. If you're business. That's all right.
Thank you, Abby. Could we have the reading of petition number 2, please?
Petition number 2, location 202 Dixie Way, owner Shore Equity Incorporated. Requested action, variance from section 151.112 to allow a controlled use within 1,000 feet of 2 other controlled uses to allow CBD sales on this property. Zoning B Business Commercial District, Roseland.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the town of Roseland has made the interpretation that the retail sale of CBD is a controlled use, meaning that it would have serious objectionable characteristics which may have a deleterious effect upon adjacent areas. As such, per the ordinance, there cannot be more than 3 controlled uses within 1,000 feet. In this case, the proposed location of the CBD sales is within 1,000 feet of a pawn shop and a bar, which are both classified per Roseland's ordinance as controlled uses. Therefore, the petitioner is requesting a variance to allow this additional controlled use within 1,000 feet of 2 other controlled uses. Staff recommends denial of the variance, mainly on the grounds that there's no real practical difficulty in the use of the property. It is a business commercial zone property that still has plenty of other viable commercial uses which are not considered controlled uses. Turning to the first state law criteria, we find that approval of the request based on the town's interpretation that this is a controlled use may be injurious to health, safety, and general welfare. As a controlled use, clustering objectionable uses could be injurious to general welfare and potentially public safety. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property could be affected in a substantially adverse manner because controlled uses that are saturated in one specific area could lead to a blighted area, which reduces the property values that are adjacent to that vicinity. Turning to the third criteria, staff does not find that there is really any practical difficulty which would warrant granting this variance, given that there are several other viable uses for the property in question that would not be considered controlled uses. And I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
There's just a slight discrepancy in what I saw. So in your analysis, you say within 1,000 feet of any other 2 controlled uses. But in the portion of what I saw, it was within 500 feet of any other controlled uses.
Correct. The petitioner, or I don't know, there was some sort of erroneous thought going around that it qualified as an adult use, which would be the 500 feet. It's not an adult use. Those are more like sexually oriented uses. It's considered a controlled use by the town, not an adult use, which
Roseland can consider CBD, anything with CBD to be a controlled substance.
a controlled use, the retail sale of CBD, correct?
Understood.
Shelley, did you make a note that Sydney Schaefer has returned to the board?
I did.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have?
Real quick, Bob, Sean, the pawn shop and the bar that are referenced are like block and a half away, but still 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I had a good graphic for that. I apologize, but
Oh, I see the blue line.
it may be in the packet, yes.
Okay. All right.
Another question, why is 1,000 feet on a controlled substance?
I would think you'd want them close together. Rather than first.
Actually,
Right.
whether you want to like have like a little red light district and just get it all together or spread
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
So, it's true.
Well, okay then. What's CBD? Is that-
To pause. The
We're in
meeting.
a pausing mode right now.
Do we get to talk amongst ourselves?
No.
Not about BZA business.
I know.
That's why I asked the question.
Oh, it went out.
And you should.
It turned itself off. Okay.
Here we go.
There's a ghost in the computer. It turned itself off. Everything's back on. Please continue.
Okay, we're back.
May we have the petitioner, please?
Is there anybody online
Anybody on Zoom?
on Zoom for 202 Dixie Way, Town of Roseland,
As the petitioner.
as the petitioner?
Yes, hi, this is William Breen.
Go ahead, please.
Please state your name and address for the record.
This is William Breen and it's for 202 Dixie Way, please.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm really sorry, you were breaking up a little bit, so I apologize. If you can hear me, okay, I'll continue. Yes, our goal is, it is, yes, to sell CBD, but it's also, it would just be an included product in a more of a health and wellness center with things like, kombucha and more of like, I guess, alternative type of more type of food and supplements. And CBD would obviously be a part of that, as we're asking for things like, pain relief and sleep aid and things of those natures.
Anything else, sir?
No, I think that was it. And, like you all said, it currently doesn't fall underneath, sir, of the current ordinance of the 1,000 feet, but, we don't, I mean, obviously we don't make the rules, but we just don't see, or I guess, fully understand why that would be considered an adult use. So I do understand at one point you would have to card people at the register for 18 or over, or even 21 or over, depending on the CBD type of product that would be allowed. But you can get them at, you can get it at gas stations or pharmacies, and, people are getting carded there. So I guess we're just trying to have a bit of an understanding, or like you all are doing right now, which we appreciate, is taking into consideration our point of that, within a 10-mile radius of that location on Dixie Way, that there is a handful of places that are currently selling CBD that are within, that don't necessarily hit that ordinance. I'm not trying to get them in trouble or saying to take that away. I would just hope that we could be considered for that. Please and thank you.
Thank you. Any question?
Yeah, Mr. Breen, so are you aware of any, since you're wanting to open the CBD shop, is there any state requirements that you are aware of that would require you to have this kind of distance between you and other controlled uses in the state?
No, sir. Thank you very much for the question. No, this is very much so Roseland specific. As as we were looking for various locations, this is throughout the state of Indiana. Well, I should more say from basically South Bend to the Chicago, to the Illinois border there on the Chicago side. But no, this was the only one that we ran into that has an ordinance as such with a certain amount of square feet in between, sir, the adult uses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? From the board? Okay, we'll open this up to the public. Anyone wish to speak for this petition, please step forward. Anyone on Zoom? No.
No.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak against this petition from the audience? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll close this. Any questions?
Actually, I have a question.
Comments?
I actually have a question for the owner.
Okay.
Lance Roush, Mr. Green, are you still there? Green?
Yes, sir. No problem. That's definitely not the
Um,
first time that I've been called green. Probably not the
Yeah.
last for today.
All right, so apologize for that.
That's okay.
What are the federal regulations that you have to abide by to sell CBD as opposed to like a dispensary?
So federal regulations are, sure, good question. They're actually not very, intense or, very micro. You definitely have to, label where it's from and the percentages of it, like a common phrase in the CBD market is CBD 10%, which means if like, let's say you have a 30-gram tube, of pain cream, yes, pain cream in a 30-gram tube, that 10% of that would be CBD. I'm just using an example there. So you have to disclose that. What we would do is go above and beyond and put like, where it is sourced from, the creation date, the expiration date. And I know you didn't ask that, but as far as for federal and state, it's still decently new, even though CBD's been around for a long time, but it's definitely not as strict as if you're speaking towards cannabis to cannabis dispensaries, like in obviously the surrounding state next to us, Michigan, right?
Right, that's what I was getting at, was trying to ascertain the difference between, in essence, between CBD and cannabis. Is there any limit on how much CBD you can sell to someone if they're of age?
No, so there isn't, and thank you for clarifying that because I left out a key part. It is, as long as it is under 0.03, or excuse me, 0.3% THC, which is the psychoactive component, but that's on the cannabis, literally on the cannabis side of the hemp plant, because there's two sides of it. I'll try not to get too scientific for the board, but if it's hemp derived and it's under 0.3%, then the federal and then the state of Indiana, and honestly all states in our country, they consider that to be legal, basically, right? If it was even 0.35%, then of THC within the CBD, and we don't really plan on having any of that anyways, but I'm just, to make sure I'm answering your question, but if it's on anything over 0.3, then it does become illegal to sell. And then again, to re-answer your question is no, there currently is not a limit of how much can be purchased from from one consumer in one sitting. Again, as long as it's under 0.3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And again, just for those that don't know, at 0.3, there isn't really a psychoactive component. So you're not, I'm gonna put it simply, board and everybody on Zoom, you're not getting high at 0.3 or less. If I may put it in that simple of layman terms.
We get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any other questions?
I guess I have a couple of questions for, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Is the bar also classed as a restaurant?
So in this case, the food that's served at the bar is accessory to the alcoholic beverages, not the other way around. But that is a good question. Otherwise, it would be considered a restaurant which serves alcohol, which would not be a controlled use.
Right, because, in a lot of cases, the bars even though you think they're serving more alcohol, still fall under that restaurant category. And in turn are able to be open on Sundays. Is that bar able to be open on Sunday?
That I'm not sure about.
Question.
I don't know either.
That's a good question.
I guess I just had a couple of questions. So this CBD products are not illegal to sell in Indiana, correct? I mean, am I correct in that thought process?
They are legal as long as they, like he said, don't hit the level
The
at which
point,
they become
0.03,
marijuana.
right? But so this is the town of Roseland's ordinance for controlled uses. So CBD still does fall underneath controlled uses. And so that then triggers their ordinance.
Correct. And it's, yeah, and it's not even saying it's illegal to sell in town. It just would have to meet those spacing.
It has to, the
requirements.
spacing issue is what we have here.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Would it be helpful for you all to hear the definition of a controlled use in Roseland?
Please.
Sure.
All right, since there's been a lot of debate, discussion about it. Any use of property which is recognized as having serious objectionable characteristics when, particularly when several of them are concentrated, which have or may have a deleterious effect upon adjacent areas, specifically including but not limited to adult bookstore, adult mini motion, the picture theater, adult cabaret, establishment for sale of beer or intoxicating beverages for consumption on premise, except when serving such beverages as incidental to the serving of food, massage establishment, pawn shop, pool or billiard hall, public dance hall. So it's in the, including, not necessarily limited to, but really, there was a question raised earlier in the hearing about why not zone them all together, because you're trying to prevent a skid row of sorts, having these uses highly concentrated together.
I believe Sean referred to it as a red light district.
I know.
Analogous.
Or combat zone.
Yeah.
So any use of property which is recognized as having serious objectionable characteristics.
Okay, so I'm gonna, that is a great point. So I'd like to follow up that with the question. Is there any obtainable data from staff that shows that these become those type of areas that
What I
a
can tell you as a
controlled
board
use?
is that the town zoning administrator is who makes the initial decision as to how to interpret their ordinance. And it was the town zoning administrator who determined that they believed that this use fell under the definition of a controlled use under their ordinance.
Okay.
There is a process by which such a determination can be appealed. In this case, it wasn't. So that the determination that it is a controlled use is what we have to work with. Because that determination has been made and it was not appealed in the process in which that would needed to have been done.
So they could have appealed the actual CBD being controlled use.
That was an option that was available to them under the ordinance that was
Understood.
not taken.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
We did review this application to make sure that it didn't have the hallmarks of such an application and it doesn't have all of the things that such an appeal would need to have. It is just a variance request under the
Right.
determination that was made.
Gotcha.
Mr.
Mhm.
Green, are you still online?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm right here.
Question, are you open or will you be open on Sunday?
We were planning on it, but we surely don't have to.
Just a question.
Yes,
Do it-
thank
do
you.
it plan.
And,
The answer
it-
is yes.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
That was the plan.
I found out that Cheers is open on Sunday. So that would,
Which means
Last
they're
I knew
doing a
it
certain
was
percentage of food sales.
they qualify as food sales, so the class is a restaurant.
No, that's not true anymore because we can be open on Sundays and we only serve alcohol at the BK Club. So we don't serve food. We can go on Sundays.
You serve food, you make food there.
No, we don't. Not for public consumption.
You don't.
I'm not an expert on
Yeah,
state
we're-
liquor laws,
yeah,
but
we're looking
I
at
don't know
liquor
that they
laws now,
necessarily have
that's-
to correspond to what's considered a controlled use locally.
Yeah, that's what I would say is the question of whether it's considered to be a bar or a restaurant under state law is not really relevant. It's the question of what Roseland
Let's-
calls
let's
it.
Move on. Do we have a motion, please?
We were told that we couldn't appeal any part of that with Roseland, including the controlled substance. I'm not surely not being argumentative. I just wanted to share that fact, and that's why we came to this board here with.
Well, I would say that that would need to be something that you should take up with the town.
I
but,
tried.
It's
Yeah.
not, and
We-
it's not really relevant at this point because the time has passed.
Right, we understand.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Lance Roush, I move that we approve the motion as written.
Sid Schaefer, I'll second that.
Mr. Hawley,
No,
Mr. Ritzma,
No.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes,
Mr. Bellman.
I'm torn on overriding what the town of Roseland has determined to be a proper use in the side of their city. But I'm also on a different side of the CBD, I guess, the CBD functionality for a personal use type, whether it truly should be a controlled use, but that's not what we're asking for here, so. However, if we go back to the three, and we can't see them on the board, but our three rules that we are to engage in. Obviously, the city of, or town of Roseland does believe it would be injurious to the health of the community. It potentially could impact the value of the property. And the strict application would not result in practical difficulties. There are a lot of other buildings inside of, he said, between State Line and South Bend. So I would have to say no.
what was the vote?
It was,
3-2.
noes and 2 yeses, so the motion failed.
Based on the,
Well, no,
testimony?
there hasn't been a motion that passed yet. The next thing would be we need a motion to
Denied.
deny it.
Denied, I'm sorry.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll make a motion that we denied the variance as requested.
I would second that motion, Joe Bellman.
Mr. Roush. This is for denial.
A yes is to
No.
deny.
Mr. Schaefer,
No.
Mr. Bellman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes,
So the petition, there was not able to be a majority in favor of either denying or approving the petition, so it automatically is tabled to the next meeting. You have to have 4 to do something.
so it was denied.
No, it
No,
was,
table.
it was tabled automatically to the next meeting because there wasn't 4 votes either to approve or to deny.
Can I make a request to staff that we have the town of Roseland here for the next meeting, please? Thank you.
Do I need to make a statement?
Nope, it's just automatically tabled.
Automatically tabled. Okay, thank you. Could we have petition number 3, please?
Application 17835 Edgewood Walk. Owner Lori Sue Cresson. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070 sub C1D1A to allow a 6-foot privacy fence in the front yard of a lot with 3 front lot lines where 3 feet is permitted. Zoning R single family district, county.
Staff, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner in this case has a rather uniquely situated lot that effectively has 3 front lot lines. This considerably restricts the area in which they would be able to have a 6-foot privacy fence. Consequently, staff finds that there is adequate practical difficulty to support this variance, and we recommend approval. Turning to the first criteria, we find that it will not be injurious to public health, safety, general welfare of the community. It's not in a clear site area triangle, the fence as proposed. And it is actually going to be set back 25 feet from the center line of the road, which is 17 feet from the pavement. So it's not really going to at all interfere with vision. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Really what they're proposing to fence off is kind of a modest request. They just want a little area behind the what would be the back of the house fenced off, and then a little more screening up on the east side. So it's really going to only be directly visible to the properties immediately across to the east. And once again, it is going to be set back 25 feet from the center line of the road. So the visual impact will be limited. Turning to the strict application, given that there are these 3 front lot lines, the only area that the petitioner would be able to fence off under the ordinance would be up in like the north area, like just a little square up here by the property line of like 700 square feet. So there is considerable practical difficulty here, given that the lot has 3 front lot lines. So staff recommends approval of the variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, could we have the petitioner, please? Name and address, please.
Is there a petitioner on Zoom for 17835 Edgewood Walk? I show no petitioner for petition on Edgewood Walk on Zoom.
Well, I would make a motion to table to the last of this meeting, pending a petitioner showing up.
Lance Roush, second.
You can do all those in favor on
Verbal.
that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll table this to the end of the meeting if they show up. Item petition number 4, please.
Location 11032 Anderson Road. Owner Michael and Tony Leisure. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070 sub C 1D 1A to allow for a 6-foot privacy fence in the front yard of a corner lot where a maximum of 3 feet would be permitted. Zoning R single family district, county.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. This is Carl Brown-Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. So as mentioned, this is a corner fence variance, another one. The property is located at the corner of Anderson and Beach Roads. The petitioner is requesting a higher fence height along the Beach Road front of their property. They recently built an addition behind the eastern portion of their house that includes a deck and a pool, and they're requesting the higher fence privacy to provide, or the higher fence height to provide privacy for that portion of the fence. Looking at the traffic on that intersection, Beach Road is fairly busy. According to MACOG, that's 2,000 roads travel on that per day, from Anderson to the road to the south. Also, the parcel directly to the east, of which will be facing the proposed fence, is wooded on that side of their property. So it won't really obstruct the neighbor's view. And if you look at the site plan of the fence, it shows that it's set back more than 29 feet from the beach road. So it won't be injurious to drivers traveling along the road, as it doesn't cover that clear sight triangle. So looking at our state criteria, staff finds that approval of this variance will not be injurious to the community. The fence will be far enough away, as I said, that it will not affect drivers traveling along Beach Road. The use and value of neighboring properties will also not be affected because the property abutting to the east is already screened naturally by trees that exist currently. And finally, the strict application of the terms of this chapter will deny the petitioner the right to provide privacy to their rear yard and increase the enjoyment of their property by not allowing them to screen from an already pretty busy intersection. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions?
Were you parked in the middle of the road when you took that picture?
I don't know. It was a pretty, it was a pretty hairy moment there.
Sorry, just asking.
No, that's a driveway, actually.
That's a
kind of the
driveway,
Sideway,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, could we have the petitioner, please?
Oh, yeah.
Name and address.
Tony and Michael Lejeune, 11032 Anderson Road.
And we have
Tony and Michael.
Tony and Michael.
Mhm.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, they really cleared what we wanted to say about, privacy in the back of our yard and, there's quite a bit of, traffic down that way, especially, between the hours of 3 and 5. Our grandchildren do run through that yardway and, we were trying to use a little bit of a protection there just to, note that it's a little bit more privacy when we have functions or anything like that, so.
Questions from the board?
Sir?
Anything else you want to add, please?
That's it.
Thank you, thank you. We'll open this to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this? Please come forward. Anyone on Zoom?
No, I filed it.
No.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak against this petition? Please come forward. Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Thank you. This petition is now closed. Any other questions or motion?
I would just have to say that, you know, those notorious corner lots seem to be posing problems. I know we're working on that, which is greatly appreciated. I do appreciate the petitioner gave us the actual dimensions because we can note correct as per site plan that they're gonna have 29.5 feet off of the edge of the road, which is it's great to know what that particular measurement is. So I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. And seeing that and taking the staff recommendation, I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested for 11032 Anderson Road.
Donnie Ritzmel, second.
We have a motion in a second. We have the,
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Holly.
yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variance is granted and we will be issuing a written finding of the fact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Petition number 5.
Location 55320 Sundown Road. Owner Ariel Stewart. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.107 sub C 2 to allow for a side yard south setback of 3 feet where 8 feet is required, excuse me. Zoning R single family district county.
Staff, please.
So this is Carl Brown Grimm again, Area Plan Commission staff. This request comes from a petitioner that is rebuilding a garage too close to the property line. The original garage was destroyed in a fire, and they would be typically allowed to rebuild it under the provisions of the ordinance, specifically section 154.057A that permits any single family home or accessory building that was destroyed to be rebuilt. However, because it's being enlarged from the original structure, it needs to be built in compliance with all setbacks. The building department, the garage is half built today. The building department red tagged it after they received a complaint from the abutting neighbor that it was being built too close to the property line. In the packet, you can see the garage as it originally stood on Google Maps. And you can also see the garage as it is today, which it shows the overhanging eave, which according to the petitioner's builder comes within 3 feet of the property line. Looking at the pictures and then kind of looking at the aerials as well, you can see that in this area, it is common for structures to encroach on the minimum side yard of other properties. You can also see in the petition or in the packet that they submitted a site plan. Staff was in contact with the petitioner and requested a new site plan, given that this one was kind of incomplete and it was pretty difficult to tell the exact distances from the property lines. We gave them until May 1st to submit a new one, and they had not done that to my knowledge. So we are recommending you table this until we have a better site plan to look at. I've also provided in the packet the original site plan that was submitted to the building department when they pulled the permit to rebuild the garage in 2021. That showed a 15-foot setback. However, the distance between the two houses is 15 feet, not the distance to the property line. So when we look at the state law criteria, approval may be injurious to the community. Per the building department, any wall built closer than 5 feet to the property line must have a 1-hour fire rating. However, based on the lack of a site plan, I guess we don't really know how far the wall is to the property line. Further indication that this may be an injurious petition comes from the fact that this began as a complaint from the abutting neighbor. And we have received numerous letters of remonstrance, which you may find in your packet. Use and value may not be affected of neighboring property values. While the garage is large and out of character sort of for the area, again, the side yard setback encroachments are common in that area specifically. And then finally, there is no practical difficulty. Staff doesn't feel because they are permitted to rebuild the garage as it was. We don't see the difficulty in building it to that size. But again, due to the lack of an acceptable site plan, staff feels that the petition is incomplete and therefore recommends tabling until we get a better site plan.
How did you contact the petitioner and ask them to submit a new site plan?
Yes.
Do you remember when you asked for that?
I don't remember the exact date, but it was at least a week and a half before May 1st.
Thank you. Okay, other questions?
Was it surveyed?
Not to my knowledge. We did ask the builder to survey it and they did not.
I was gonna say, because you don't know where the property line really is.
So the site plan we're looking at now is not,
That was the original site plan that was submitted to the building department.
Okay.
And that has been found to not be accurate.
not be accurate. Okay.
Correct.
The site plan was included just to demonstrate that the building permit was granted based on what was provided.
Mhm.
And what was provided doesn't reflect what was constructed. Not that the building department granted.
Sounds like what was provided wasn't even what was the case before, let alone what was partially constructed.
Correct.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah.
Okay, we'd like to ask your name and address, please, petitioner.
My name is Carl Fuller, 55320 Sundown Road. As when I was building the project, the inspector came out, inspected the holes as it actually is complete where it is. It's the same 24 by 44 or whatever it is on that site plan. It's just a little taller. I have it at 19 foot, but as he came out there and told me, if it's attached to the dwelling, the zoning, you can go above 3 foot over any existing dwelling. So that's what I wanted to do. And when I went to go update the permit, they said that it was red tagged because the overhang. And I did not actually know that the width or the length was any questionable. I thought it was just the overhang, what we were here for.
Any other comments? How about questions?
So on your site plan, as indicated by staff, you indicated 15 feet to your property line. Is that indicated to the overhang that's as built or the sidewall of the existing garage or the sidewall of the new garage?
No, that's the distance between the house and the new garage,
Whose house?
the neighbor's house.
So this is not the property line?
No,
Oh.
that's to the neighbor's house to the house itself.
Okay.
And the property line is actually 6 foot, 6.5 inches.
To what?
But when I.
To the edge of the building or to the edge of the
To
overhang?
the edge of the building, to the property line.
Okay.
Is 6 foot, 6.5 inches. And when I called a surveyor, he said that everybody's lines from Grove all the way to Ardmore are actually not in line. Everything has to be moved 1.5 feet over. But I was actually holding off on getting a survey until I came here and figured out what I had to do.
I guess I'm being honest with the board and the petitioner, without an accurate site plan of what you want to construct and relative to the property line and the neighbor's house, I'd have a tough time making an informed decision on your petition. So
Wait, what do you want?
I would say, can I make a suggestion, Brandy?
I mean, if there's some specific information you're missing, I mean, you can say what that information is that you would need.
What I would, in order for your petition to probably have any merit with this board, we would need to have a survey to know where the lot line truly lies, because I would assume, since with what you stated, that the surveyor told you everything is off, your 6 foot 6 inches are probably not accurate. We don't know whether this is to the sidewall or whether we know it's to the sidewall, but where does the eave fall when it comes across to there? And this is not adequate for me to be able to make a decision, unfortunately. So I would need to see a survey from a licensed surveyor and then a site plan of are you doing the building? You have a builder doing it for you?
No, I'm doing it.
Somebody drawing out how it's going to be built on the lot, because that's what's going to go into record. So that's what we would be deciding on. I would need those things to be able to make an informed decision on this process.
We do have 2 letters from remonstrators. I'm assuming you have these in your packet.
I do, but does the petitioner have the opportunity to ask for something at this point if he wants to bring us that information to give us a better idea of what he wants to do?
Yeah, if that's what you need to get it approved,
That's what we need to make a decision.
Yeah,
right.
to make a decision, right?
So you need the zoning.
A survey would
A
be
survey.
imperative, and then where this new, because you're basically reconstructing your garage that's different than the old garage,
Well, actually, no, it's right where the old foundation was.
but it's higher, so
It's
it's,
higher,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Triggered.
we would need, and even an elevation would help on that,
Right.
where everything falls, where that new garage is gonna be versus where the house is existing versus where old was. I mean, all of a not a 3D, but at least an elevation, a site plan on the exact where you're at to the property lines would be highly recommended.
All right.
Does that answer what you're kind of looking for?
Yeah.
Now, what we would like to ask you, if you would want to table this till the next month's meeting, which will be
June 14th.
June 14th.
June the 14th.
Well, I guess I have to, or it's gonna get denied, so, you know.
Well, we're trying to be cooperative.
Well, the whole thing is it's already got okayed and everything, and I went to go pull the right permits, because I wanted to go a little higher. And now that I was told the only thing that was in discrepancy was the overhang. Now the building itself is too close.
That's where a survey would help all of
Yeah.
us out realistically.
If the board wants to table it, it doesn't have to do so at the request of the petitioner. It can do it
Oh.
on its own.
Then I'm gonna request the petitioner table this till next month, and if you can bring that data back to us,
Be a motion that you would be.
I would
making
make a
for the board
motion to table this until the June 14th meeting,
For more information. Yeah.
pending more information.
Do we have a second?
Tony Ritzman, I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
All right, thank you.
Okay, petition number 6.
You did not.
Location 56765 Quince Road. Owner Albert and Christine D. Meyer. Requested action. Variance from section 154.107 sub B to allow a lot width of 35 feet where a minimum of 100 feet is required for a lot in a proposed two-lot subdivision. Zoning R single family district, county.
Staff, please.
Yes, thank you. Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner has a parcel containing a single family home and then another parcel which contains an accessory structure immediately behind that single family home parcel. He would like to extend that property line south such that they're both on the same parcel. Unfortunately, the existing parcel has limited lot frontage and therefore limited lot width because it is at the effectively the dead end of that portion of Quince Road. So therefore, he'll need this variance to complete the subdivision to essentially legalize the new lot, more or less. So it's not actually reducing the width or the frontage of the lot in question. It's just necessary for us to approve the new lot configured in the new subdivision. So staff recommends approval of the variance. Turning to the state law criteria, we find that it would not be injurious to health, safety, and general welfare. Although it has limited lot width, the existing house is already readily visible from the right of way. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in an adverse manner. The uses will still be limited to our single family uses and allowing a house to still have limited lot width is not going to have any impact on neighbors in the surrounding area. And there is a practical difficulty in the strict application of the ordinance in that it would prevent the property owner from completing the subdivision and creating this new lot that encompasses the house and the accessory structure onto one parcel. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Sean, you're saying that the lot, where's the 35 feet? Because that house can't be, that house has to be more than 5 feet wide.
The way that the lot width definition is written is based on measuring from the frontage. It has 35 feet of frontage on the right of way.
It's because it's at the dead end. of Quince Road.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
All right,
Yes,
now, thanks.
no problem.
I'm like, that's a big house. That can't be 35 feet. Very, very much a technicality. Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? May we have the petitioner, please? Name and address, thank you.
My name is Mike Courier of JPR. Here I'm representing the owner. Exactly like they said, just kind of an odd, unique shape of a lot. That's unique how it's at the end of the road that the access is there. So we'd be requesting to grant a variance for this lot split.
Could you have your address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, 325 South Lafayette, South Bend, Indiana. But it's basically just the unique nature of the lot. And it's just kind of comes up as kind of an odd, unique scenario, but it would not impact or have a negative impact to the surrounding neighbors as it's existed this way for as long as anyone else has known.
So is this site plan that we have in our packet the current lot lines, or is that gonna be the new lot lines?
That's the new lot lines.
Okay.
I can show you the one that actually has the houses on it. That's the final plat. We have this support data sheet that actually has the homes on it. I can show you that one if you'd like. I have it here.
Yeah, I would actually appreciate having that. My packet's incomplete. Thank you. That's okay. No one else asked for it.
We do have to keep that, though.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I can print many more.
Well, you can read it.
Yeah, that's,
It just shows the drive coming right off the end of Quince and it's just kind of tucked in there nicely. And the fact that Ford had not been vacated long ago, it would have been non-issue getting her. That's how it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor? Please step forward. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak against this? Please come forward. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom?
No.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close this to the public. Do we have any other questions or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Joe Vellman, moving the lot line to include that outbuilding onto the lot with the house makes sense that you want to have it a part of your existing deed, I guess, for lack of a better term I don't know the technical term for it. It doesn't affect anyone else around it, just moves a lot line. It doesn't change anything existing on the other plots. So I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Donnie Ritzmo, second.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variance is granted and will issue written findings of the fact. Thank you very much. Okay, petition number 7.
location 51810 Elm Road, owner London and Molly Provost. Requested actions, variance number 1 from section 154.070 sub C1A1 to allow a total detached accessory building area of 3,326 square feet, where a maximum of 2,541 square feet is permitted to allow construction of a new 40 by 80-foot pole barn. And variance number 2 from section 154.070 sub C1A1 to allow an accessory building with a height of 24 feet with a maximum height of 22 feet is permitted to allow construction of a new 40 by 80-foot pole barn. Zoning R single family district, county.
Staff, please.
Thank you. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. The petitioner is looking to build a 40 by 80, 3,200 square foot pole building that will be 24 feet in height. They're seeking to build this structure to store additional vehicles in it, as well as to have working space for hobbies. Per the site plan, the garage will be well set back and out of view from the public. And the structure is in character with other larger accessory buildings found on other tracts of land in the area. You can see in the packet some examples of those. Also, there's been a few site plans submitted showing the location of the septic survey and the proposed garage to scale. Going over the criteria, staff finds that the structure will not be injurious to the public, nor will it affect surrounding property values due to the location of the structure and the wooded nature of the surrounding lots. And also the fact that it will be in character with other lots in the area. However, staff does not feel that practical difficulty exists in this case, as the petitioner would be able to build a pole barn nearly 2,500 square feet in size and 22 feet tall. And that should be sufficient to accommodate any residential accessory use on a property that size. However, the petitioner did submit this morning a pretty good description of what will be used in the property for you to consider. So you can take that into consideration, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions at all?
Yeah, what are they gonna do with the extra 126 square feet?
There's an existing shed on the property, so that's why they need the 33, 26, yeah.
Cause 40 by 80 is 32.
Right, and then there's an existing shed that they want to keep, so.
May we have the petitioner, please?
Go ahead, Molly, turn your mic on.
Hi, my name is Molly Provost, address 51810 Elm Road. So we have the proposal of building the pole barn. Currently, we have no garage on our property. That's the biggest thing. In addition to that, it'll be used to then store our recreational vehicles. Currently, things like, we have mini bikes for our property and bicycles, and those are being stored under an overhang. Because we don't have the garage space. And then additionally, just providing storage for things that people typically store in their garage, seasonal decorations for outdoors. We're kind of having to find space where to put those things. We do have plans to add additional square footage to our home, which would give us the proper square footage to match the barn. But we're asking for permission now to build the pole barn so that we have that additional storage and we can utilize it when we're adding the additions and renovations and doing the updates. An example would be before all of this, we did some work in our kitchen and we had to use our living space to store the materials for the kitchen because again, we don't have that garage space for those. The height is basically the preferred design, since we will see it from our backyard, but we also plan to then have a porch. Our backyard doesn't have shade. And that kind of comes into why the design is the way that it is. And then the pitch accommodates the snow load because of the unique shape of the building. We could lower the pitch, but we would prefer, due to that slope that's needed. I think that's it. If there's anything else, I'm here for questions.
Anyone have a question?
Nope.
No questions at this time, so we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Is there anyone on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none, is there anyone here wishing to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom?
No.
Thank you. We'll close it to the public now, and any further questions? Or a
Like-
motion?
I did have one question for the petitioner, Mr. Provost. The aerial that I have for this and what we saw on the site is there is a couple of outbuildings and it appears by your site plan, is at least one of those gonna go away? I'm trying to see with your site plan of the proposed barn, appears to be in the same site as where that shed is.
Yes, so the shed would go away, which is where the extra space comes into play. And then I'm not sure if you're looking at an aerial photo, towards the back of the property, there was a chicken coop. We have since removed that, because we don't have chickens. So I'm not sure what you're referring to with the aerial. I'm not sure exactly what you're seeing in comparison to what I have submitted.
Okay.
Right
Well,
now where the mouse is, there's not a building back there. I don't know if that's what you're pointing to.
Right, on the aerial, it shows that way. I didn't
yep.
I didn't go on your
So-
property to go inspect the back half of it, but it's pretty deep, so.
Yeah, so the chicken coop that is at the very back of our property, that has since been removed. We don't have chickens. We don't have plans to have chickens. And then the shed would be replaced with that additional square footage that we're asking for.
Bob Hawley here, may I ask, what is the the reasoning behind going to the 24-foot height?
Because it accommodates the snow load. I'm kind of a stand-in to answer that question. My husband said it accommodates the snow load because of the design of the building, the way that it's kind of, not,
The
I-
angle-
is it
the angle
A-frame?
is- The angle is more pronounced.
yeah.
Therefore,
And I think that design is due to us wanting to put that porch on the front since we don't have shade in our backyard.
I'd like to ask the staff, I noticed that you deny this petition. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, so at the time, we just didn't feel that there was practical difficulty in allowing a larger than, they were allowed 2,500 per the ordinance. I just really, I didn't feel that anything of the land specifically warranted the extra square footage, but I'll leave that up to you guys to decide.
So what we evaluated was based on the initial submittal. The petitioner has provided additional details and documentation today that I think make for a stronger case.
Yeah.
We might have looked at it differently had we had all the information that you all have today.
Thank you. Very good point.
Yeah, the unique design of the pole barn being it's canted more towards the south side with the solar panels, I think is the cause for that higher roof. It's interesting, yeah, it's noted as 3.5 over 12, which is still pretty slim. I mean, to go anything lower than that, you're not gonna get much, you're not gonna shed as much as you probably should realistically,
Well,
so.
still have the headroom for an RV.
Yeah, and still have the room, yeah, exactly, for the way that they've depicted the RV to park in there, that's, yeah, that's an interesting concept there, so. With the information we have and with where this building's being oriented on the site and with the 24-foot side or the 40-foot side being oriented to the front and there's woods on both sides shielding it. And the notation that the petitioner has in there of the porch roof, I guess, and I'm at a loss for what term that would be, roof line. I make a motion that we approve the variance as requested. I think being able to park all of everything they have inside of there and the way they have this oriented on the lot and the way it is on the lot makes it a good opportunity for them.
Downey Ritzmel, second.
Now, we're talking both items here.
Yes, I'm sorry. I make a motion to approve both petitions as requested. Yes. Thank you, Bob.
Downey Ritzmel, still second.
Square footage and height.
Mr. Roush,
The answer is yes, with the comment that based on the size of, the reason I'm answering yes is based on mostly on the size of the lot. And if this was in another portion of the county and zoned agricultural, they would be doing this by right.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes, also, and I agree that the lot has a lot to do with the base of approval. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variance is granted and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you very much. Item number 8.
Location 31139 New Road. Richard D. Ives and Catherine J. Smith requested action variance from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 2.5 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for a lot in a proposed one-lot subdivision. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Yes, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So currently there is a 30-acre parcel with an existing single-family home zoned A agricultural district. The petitioner would like to divide off the house along with 2.5 acres. Staff does recommend approval of the variance, but only on the condition that the remaining acreage be placed in an outlot and that a written commitment be recorded stating that a residential use shall not be established on this outlot. This condition is consistent with the intent expressed by the petitioner in the application that the balance of the property will remain as cultivated farmland and woods. This case is a little bit unusual in that the outlot itself isn't sufficient because the outlot will be more than 20 acres with more than 600 feet of road frontage. So that would allow the future conversion to a buildable lot simply through a minor subdivision without any sort of variance or public hearing. So consequently, we want that written commitment to really ensure that this doesn't establish an additional residential use in the agricultural district beyond what is permitted by right. With the condition in place, staff finds that it will not be injurious to health, safety, and general welfare because it will not allow a new residential use in the agricultural district. Similarly, we find that with the condition, the use and value of the area will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because it will not allow any more residential uses beyond the existing house. And we find that strict application would result in practical difficulties because it would prevent the house from being split off from the remaining acreage and owned separately in the future, which potentially increases the value of the properties. Therefore, we do recommend approval, but again, on the condition that the balance be placed into an unbuildable outlot through the subdivision process and that a written commitment is recorded stating that there shall be no residential use on this outlot. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We did receive 2 letters of support, which were filed with the application.
Any questions at this time? Mr. Brightman.
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue here in South Bend. To represent the petitioners here, Mr. Ives and Ms. Smith. The petition before you is kind of a unique. I'll give you a little background also. The contingent purchaser of the home is with us here today in the crowd, as well as her mother. They live catty corner south and west of this home. Her mother has a condition that is decreasing health-wise and is in the future going to be needing more and more assisted care. Her mom currently boards some farm animals there also that belong to the daughter. So they had heard that Mr. Ives and Ms. Smith would possibly be interested in selling the home. So they approached him and come to an agreement for the purchase of the home. The configuration that you see right there encompasses the farmyard area where the house is, and then would provide a sufficient area for boarding, a couple of horses on the other two point some acres when you take the house out of it. So the parcel that you see right there is going to still be used agriculturally, as well as providing a home sufficiently close to the contingent purchaser's mother so that she can provide care as her condition deteriorates in the future. And we don't have any objection to the balance of the property, being placed as an outlot at this point, at this time. It's something that we're trying to preserve the agricultural nature here, and with the home having some agricultural use with the boarding of animals that would be located on that 2.5 acres. We're still kind of complying with that portion of the ordinance there. So if you have any questions with regards to that, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And as Sean had indicated, there are a couple letters in support for this petition also that I'd like to reference to as well.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Ling, I apologize. I do not have an eye to be able to eyeball out what 2.67 acres looks like, but I'm assuming by the site plan you've given us that is going to basically square off this whole bottom portion all the way to the property
Goes-
line, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is
So it's not
correct.
just sectioning out the portion that's actually not tilled where the house is. It's gonna go all the way to that tilled section.
It's
as
going to go
well.
back to the tree line back there and,
Okay.
and to the west property line, correct.
Okay,
And that would provide a grazing area for those animals then also.
understood. Okay, just want to make sure I understood exactly what we're talking about.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? Please come forward. Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom that is in favor?
No.
Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak against the petition? Please come forward. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom?
No.
Okay, we'll close this to the public and any other questions or a motion?
Well, this is an interesting one to me because it's very similar to petition number one, where if we designate as an outlot, it's not buildable, but it is desirable land that's actually partially wooded. So I don't know how much actual tillable land. I mean, obviously the portion that's tillable is in production right now, but overall, is that the best use for that? What's going to be left of 24 some odd acres there? So is the distinction to make this an outlot really in the best use of this land?
My question is, with the new comprehensive plan, will it null and void the outlot if we make them prior to?
I don't know that we can speak to that. I don't know. I'm
If
not. I
the
don't-
petitioner is amenable to the condition, it's hard to argue that there is practical difficulty in what they're trying to accomplish.
Oh, you're, okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, Terry, please, okay with it. Yeah, never mind. Never mind.
No, but I understand what you're saying. That argument, whether it is the best use of the property. Yeah, there is a wooded area that, granted, it's not tilled farm ground, but they could be, taking the trees off the property as an agricultural type use also. So it's still kind of agriculturally going to be used, and the other portion of it can continue to be tilled. So that's the argument that we've been making for the last 10 years on, property being wasted
Right.
to, 20-acre splits. I've done my share of farms split into 20-acre pieces over the years, and then come back, later and you have a house sitting on 1 acre in the corner of it, and the rest of that 19 acres has been wasted away, that they thought they were protecting ag ground, and in fact, they haven't. They've probably hindered the development of ag ground more than anything else, because then it becomes more difficult after the ground has laid fallow for years, and then you got to go in there and clear all of that off. So you, Bob, and Lance both probably have seen this type of situation where you come back 25 years later with the next generation getting rid of property, and what do you do with it? Hopefully the guy next door is interested in the 19 acres and may have at least farmed it or something like that. So that's the argument that probably could justify for that change in the 20-acre requirement. And hopefully with the new comprehensive plan coming down the chute, it will allow for a split of, an acre or two, or what's necessary for, having farm animals for 4-H. That's something that's drastically needed for St. Joseph County. So with that being said, I'll pass it back to you guys.
I saw it's interesting that one of the letters actually was wanting another buildable lot. Just, I'm surprised somebody asked for that, is what it boils down to. So,
Anything else further? Do we have a motion or?
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Velleman. I would, you guys are gonna help me walk through this. So I would make a motion to approve the variances as requested, subject to the remaining parcel being designated as an outlot with conditions that I don't remember how they said it.
On the second page.
The second page?
Number one.
No,
Under
I'm sorry.
conditions.
I will read this. You have to reread it, Bob, so good luck. The following, with the following conditions, the balance of the property remaining after 2.5 acres is subdivided off shall be made into an outlot during the subdivision process, and a written commitment be recorded stating that this outlot shall not be used for residential purposes. 2 doesn't apply. And then the request is approved in accordance with the site plan and is in accordance with the site plan.
I have a question, if it's not out of place with regards, is this something new that written commitments are being asked for? Because in the past, it hasn't been. The whole idea of an outlot is, it's not buildable. If the zoning ordinance changes with the new comprehensive plan and that becomes a 3-acre piece, I put a commitment in, this piece is not usable then. I'd prefer that it just be left an outlot according to the current zoning ordinance. And if the change takes place in the future, that is an option that the property owner has to create that extra lot that somebody may want. But we're complying with the zoning ordinance the way it complies with right now.
I think if there is such a change to the zoning ordinance in the future, those would be good grounds for removing the written commitment in place.
Terry, to your question about, is this a new thing or not? We haven't asked for written commitments restricting the use for outlots that don't meet the zoning ordinance requirements, but when there's an opportunity for an outlot that could be replatted as a buildable lot without any public notice is when we've started to recommend a commitment about residential, restricting, not allowing a residential use.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Can I want to rescind my motion. Can I do that?
We did.
I didn't do it. No, no.
The other thing I'd like, to do.
Well, Terry brings up a good point. Okay, so if the comprehensive plan changes something, does a written commitment preclude them from being able to do anything?
I think it's very dangerous to talk about the comprehensive plan like the recommendation is a foregone conclusion. Everything is still in draft form, and I will say that there's a recommendation to retain the 20-acre rule.
Okay.
So it's very dangerous to be making motions based on what we think is going to be in the comprehensive plan, because we'll come out with a draft recommendation. We'll have a final round of public meetings on it. We'll present drafts to all the boards. And then we'll come back. It'll have to go to the APC and then the county council for adoption. So we're a far ways out from having anything that is a concrete recommendation of ordinance changes to make.
Well, as we stated before, what we decide today is far reaching into the future. Even if this comprehensive plan doesn't affect it, 50 years from now, it could affect it. Is this written commitment binding in that fact that any changes in future plans would be that way? Bless you.
So
Well, and I guess the question would be, how does it, because I'm sort of wanting Terry's question answered myself. Why are we suddenly, because this did come up recently, and I don't remember what the discussion was, where we started adding written commitment to these situations where we didn't before. So how does it differ? Would it not have been recorded before?
I don't know the situation you're describing
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
specifically.
think
I
in
don't,
This particular situation, the reason they're recommending it is because the remaining lot is over 20 acres.
correct. So we always look at these really closely to make sure that the outlot isn't 20 acres and with over 600 feet of frontage, because those can easily be converted into buildable lots through a minor subdivision
Right.
without any public process.
Whereas imposing a written commitment would mean that there's now, it's essentially the equivalent of like a contractual covenantal agreement recorded on the property that says
Sure,
that
which
it
would
can't
require-
change without coming back to you and asking, I would like to remove these commitments.
To
please."
unoutlot, right. But I guess the question is that before we started saying written commitment, which was relatively recently, we
It has been a long time that I know of since we've had one that was a split that left over a piece this big.
My question is, does it stay with the dirt or does it go with the person if they die?
A written commitment?
The whole outlot.
Stays with the dirt.
It would stay as an
Stays
outlot
with dirt.
unless
And if that
whoever
goes-
owns the property goes and asks and follows the minor subdivision process to get it changed into not an outlot.
Okay.
And a written commitment, if it were required, would stay with the property no matter who bought it later.
Okay, so Terry, restate your question.
Well, I'm here almost
Is an
every,
outlot
every,
different
every
today
month.
than an
and
outlot
I-
was different 10 years ago?
The written commitment is something I see as something new or not being applied frequently enough that it's come up at these meetings. Now, I'm willing to commit to an outlot, but a written commitment, you know, in 2 years when the new ordinance, however it's crafted, comes out, it may say that I'm allowed to cut 2 acres off a corner of a parcel, you know, for a nephew or somebody that's going to work on the farm. Then all of a sudden, we've got something that's, you know, contradictory to what this written commitment is.
Okay, Brandy, help me understand the difference between outlot and written commitment that says outlot. I guess that's the
Well, the
question.
written commitment that they're asking for is not that it stays an outlot, it's that it not be used for residential purposes. So what he's saying is if there was an ordinance change that would make it easy for them to go in and say, this is an outlot, we would like to change it to a buildable lot and cut off X pieces, and that would just be an available process under the subdivision, under the new ordinance, whatever it happened to be, that they wouldn't need to do anything else. If there was a set of written commitments on there that said that it could not be used for residential use, there would be an extra step that would have to be taken where they would have to come to you as the board imposing those commitments and say, the ordinance has changed and now I would be able to do this thing except for these commitments that were placed on it. And I think that because there's been a change, you should take those away now.
And in that sense, it's not really all that different than any of the other outlots you've approved. If they're below the development standards now, those standards
have to have
change
a
in the
very
future, they come
similar-
back to you
To do something with them,
and
The
they,
written commitment technically is making them do that even though
big enough.
it meets the other requirements.
correct. Correct.
And on the backside, you have, okay, say the guy that buys this outlot purchases the 10 acres next door. This is just hypothetical. Wow, I have more than 20 acres. I have a commitment that says I can't build on it, but I could configure a new 20-acre parcel off of that, that you've basically said that I can't build on that 20 acres. Well, the zoning ordinance allows you to do so.
But you could come back and ask for that commitment to be rescinded, correct? So there is a mechanism to ask again, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, but coming back to ask for something when everybody that's here will be gone and, you know, I've seen the staff change over the last 50 years that.
But if it's justified by the zoning ordinance, I don't think you're gonna have a very rough case then.
So if I meet that, if I bring in a 20-acre piece that has part of this and part of a 5-acre piece next door, will he be able to get a building permit or does he got to come back through here again and ask for that commitment to be released?
If the commitment included the legal description that the commitment was recorded on included part of that, you would have to get it released.
Any split of property would have to go through the plating ordinance. So I'm being forced to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals again and to also go through the plating process.
You likely won't be around then either, so.
I probably won't, but
Moving right along.
Well,
Bob and I will always be here.
I see.
Keeps the rules. I would like to point out that it's irregular and out of order technically for the petitioner to have jumped in during the motion phase, just to say.
It just seems like double, you know, duty here when I'm willing to
I
commit to the
have
outlet.
questions and I need answers and he was answering that question. So
Okay.
we'll give him that benefit of the doubt. As for staff. Cause I see, I think I'm on Lance's page here as well too, of this is an interesting dynamic of, again, we're considering what's gonna happen to this lot in perpetuity. Is that a requirement? Like, it's a question for this board, is that a requirement that we want?
No.
Let me make a motion.
Well, you're always making decisions in perpetuity. Variances go with the land.
I know.
So
That's why
it's
I'm,
not like,
so my question is, do I want to have this written commitment to go with the land forever and a day?
Do we have a motion?
None. Sydney has a motion.
I don't know that he did.
I'm telling him because we have to see what he says.
Started.
I rescinded mine. I'll make the motion, then I will make a motion. I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested. With the following conditions, the balance of the property remaining after 2.5 acres subdivided off shall be made into an outlot during the subdivision process.
Lance Rush, second.
Good, we have a first and we have a second.
Hey, staff wants discussion. I'm good.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Feldman,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the area board of zoning appeals, after careful consideration,
Let's careful.
finds this variance granted, it will be granted and will issue written findings of the fact. Thank you very much
Thank you.
On the condition of.
on your condition.
Yes.
Great.
It'd be nice if you could just say as stated by the petition or by the,
As stated by-
yeah,
Whoever that,
by the motion person.
okay.
Let's see.
Item number 9, please.
Location 66521 Miami Highway. Owner Richard and Barbara Carr. Requested action. Variance number 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 2 acres where a minimum of 20 acre is required. Variance number 2 from section 154.092 sub B to allow a lot width of 36 feet where a minimum of 200 feet is required for a lot in a proposed 1 lot and 1 outlot subdivision. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Yeah. Yes, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this is a petition that will allow an existing house to be split off with 2 acres. And then we'll get an outlot with the remaining 26 acres. As that 26 acre outlot only has 366 feet of road frontage, it cannot be easily converted into a buildable lot of record. They would have to come back and ask for an additional variance. Staff recommends approval of the variances. The lot width variance is related to the bizarre configuration that's there currently. The residential use portion to the south is actually kind of behind another residential use portion. So there's practical difficulty there because if they wanted to actually meet that lot width, they'd have to divide something off that's north of that other house, leading to a loss of cultivated farmland potentially and a bizarre, unusual lot configuration that we don't want to see. So we recommend approval of that variance as well. We find that the request will not be injurious to health, safety, or general welfare. They won't allow for an additional residential use. Similarly, they will not affect the use and value of the area adjacent in an adverse manner. And as I said, there is practical difficulty for that lot width variance, given where the house is located currently on the parcel. And I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
It's probably not, has nothing to do with this variance, but that lot that's in front is obviously a legal lot. I wonder when did that go into play?
I can explain that when I get to my part.
I'll just let you do it.
Then I have no other questions. No.
Go ahead.
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue, here in South Bend. I represent the petitioners here. This petition, parcel that you're looking at in this petition was here 3 years ago. The parcel that you're referencing to the east of our home that we have on this petition, those people approached the property owners. They wanted to put a garage on their piece and a little bit bigger. The property line was immediately adjacent to their old garage. We came to the Board of Zoning Appeals, got a variance for an additional 30 feet behind their home. We went through that Board of Zoning Appeals and variance process and platting. So that parcel was legally created at that point in time. Well, since then, the property owners have both passed away. It's in a trust right now, and they're settling the estate. One of the heirs is to get the home and 2 acres of land. The balance of the property then is, I guess, divvied up amongst the other heirs, or if there's just 2 of them. They're going to continue to farm it. It's a good tillable portion that brings in income from the lease on the property. And the petition before you is to cut that house out with the 2 acres. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do recall that when I was here for that.
Any questions? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Is there any on Zoom?
No.
Anyone here wishing to speak against this petition, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom?
No.
Thank you. We'll close this then to the public. And any questions or motion? Or do you have some more comments, Terry?
I have nothing additional. I was gonna, if anybody had questions, I was available.
Terry, what, that's referenced on Miami Highway. What's the tree line? Is there a road there?
Railroad bed.
That's the railroad bed.
Went through the-
There's, that's the old nickel plate railroad. I'm not nickel plate, the
Okay.
Wabash
Okay.
that ran through there.
Okay.
And this property utilized the old railroad bed as a driveway because it was good firm material. Also, a piece of property farther to the west also utilizes that same extension farther down for access down the old railroad right away there.
But they do have an easement between the rail bed and the.
We do have frontage there, and that's part of what we're doing. There's no plans to move it unless there'd be a need to, but it does have access, and that's what the variance is for.
36 feet.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
I would agree with staff's analysis presented in the report, so I would make a motion that we approve the variances as requested.
Sid Schaefer, I'll second it.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variances is granted and will issue written finding of the facts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 10.
Come on down.
Location 63403 Orange Road. Owner 63403 Orange Land Trust and Land Trust Properties LLC as trustees of. Requested action, variance from section 154.092 sub A to allow for a minimum lot area of 4.5 acres where 20 acres would be required. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff, one more time. So this petition is more similar to the last one than the one before. The petitioner here is looking to split off their house from a larger lot of land in order to keep the larger parcel in the family for future recreational enjoyment purposes. They're looking to split off about 4.5 acres of the existing house from the main parcel. The remaining 23 acres will not be buildable anyway because it doesn't have the requisite 600 feet of frontage onto Orange Road. This ensures that it will remain undeveloped and used as the petitioner intends. You can see the site plan in the packet. It shows the proposed subdivision split. The house again sitting on about 4.5 acres and the rest going to an unbuildable outlot. Again, because it will not meet the frontage requirement and they would have to come back to you to be able to convert that to a buildable parcel. Looking at state law criteria, very similar to the last petition, this action will not be injurious as it will not create an additional buildable lot in the agricultural district. It won't affect property values as there's no new buildings or construction planned. And the land will be continued to use as it is today. And then finally, the existence of practical difficulties in this case can be found in that the strict application of the ordinance wouldn't allow the petitioner the flexibility that they desire in splitting up their estate and selling the house as a separate property while retaining ownership of that larger parcel. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this point? Okay.
Mr. Hawley, members of the board, I'm Bernie Feeney. I am also with Whiteman Associates. We are located at 1405 North Michigan in Plymouth, Indiana. I'm here this afternoon on behalf of Robert and Janice Connect. They are at least partially responsible for the land trusts that were mentioned as the owner. The property is, of course, 63403 Orange Road. Photos that you may have seen in the presentation package indicates that the property is heavily wooded. You can see a driveway, but no evidence of any house from some of the pictures. It's only through the aerial that you can in fact see it. House is located well back of the road. And this particular piece of property currently is about 28.4 acres in size. The Connects purchased it in 1987. The variance that you have before you is their effort at some estate planning. This would allow the home and acreage to be sold without affecting the rear portion of the property, which the Connects have developed through plantings and other things throughout the 87 year or throughout the 36 years that they've owned the property. They and the remainder of the family, some of the heirs, may want to keep that later on and continue to develop it for family recreation, for family get-togethers, that type of thing. So that is primarily the purpose for constructing these two parcels the way they are. That way the house could be sold without having to take that acreage along with it. The family could retain the acreage. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions at all?
No, sir.
Will it landlock that piece of land?
This won't landlock the rear piece of land. There will still be, I believe, 150 feet of frontage there.
Mr. Feeney, I assume the site plan doesn't necessarily indicate it, but that 150 feet of width is maintained all the way back through the larger portion, I assume?
Generally, yes.
Yes, give or take.
Yeah,
Yeah, understood.
except for some misalignment in bearings and that type of thing.
Certainly.
We get lost out there occasionally.
It's pretty wooded.
Okay, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please come forward. Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Anyone here that is interested in speaking against this petition? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
Board, I'm Don Scheffmeyer. My address is 63-262 Orange Road. I just live down and across from this particular property. And I'm not so much speaking against it as I am trying to understand exactly what's going on with it. There seems to be a sense that I'm getting just at this meeting that there's a new ordinance that's in the works and it might not be as restrictive as the current ordinance. I've been out there pretty much as long as Mr. Connect has been out there. And what we have seen is we have seen the people that have had their properties there ever since we went to the 20-acre rule. Even those that had subdivided their property prior to that going into effect have never utilized doing any kind of a subdivision. It's a rural, very, very rural and agricultural area. What I'm concerned about here is that it seems to be that the view is that you want to stop any potential additional subdivisions and splitting it into smaller lots for housing. But what about the other side of it? We've noticed recently over on Pine Road, some huge tracts of land have been sold and fenced off now for what seems to be a commercial agricultural for animals, feedlots, possibly dairy or cattle, and depending on the size of it and who does it, this isn't a little 4-H operation. I mean, there are some pretty big. I drove down Pine Road today, and there's half a Pine Road between New Road and Orange, and then all the way down Orange to Poppy is fenced. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't what we've seen out there. This is totally different. I mean, what we've seen out there is there are some small dairy operations, they're family kind of operations in and around. But if you get a big commercial use involving animals, you've got a whole different series of issues. You've got issues involving groundwater contamination. You've got issues involving the smells associated with that. And we're kind of concerned that this may be not being looked at as a potential problem down the road. Now, this particular property, I certainly would not discourage anyone from trying to maximize the use of their property. But to call this a situation that would involve estate planning, I think really strains the credulity of the situation. I can't imagine why it would be done in this fashion. What it makes me believe is, or what it makes me concerned about is that there is another issue that is not being disclosed. And what we see as predominantly the neighbors that I've spoken to and myself is that we believe in this 20-acre rule. We believe that originally it was put in to stop urban sprawl. Are we turning the corner here and now we're going to allow urban sprawl in agricultural districts? Because it's my sense that a number of members of the board seem to be sympathetic to that view. I may be wrong. This is the only time I've attended a BZA meeting in probably 15 years. But the reality is that the reason that this 20-acre rule came in effect, first it was 5 acres, that didn't seem to work, then it was 10 acres, that didn't seem to work, then it was 20 acres, trying to maintain the rural agricultural quality of the land. And to say that the land isn't being tilled when it's lying fallow, I think is the wrong way to view it. I look at people that leave the land in its natural state to be stewards of the land. And that's a good thing in our county. We need more of that type of an attitude and less of an attitude, oh, I want to split 2 acres off, oh, I want to split 1 acre off, put the thing in the back, and then we'll worry about it down the road when everybody's forgotten the original reason. Now, it may be that there's a new ordinance coming out that's going to make all of this moot. But for right now, what we've got is what we should be dealing with directly, it seems to me, and that is what we've got on the books in terms of an ordinance. So all of this speculation about, well, you know, what happens if they have to come back and do something? I think that the board is reasonable enough to know that if a decision was made here now about an issue under the present ordinance, if that changes radically, there's not going to be any big problem about getting it under the new ordinance. You gotta cut me off, I know. Okay, I'm cut off. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak against this proposal? Please come forward. Name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Sitley. I live at 63299 Orange Road, South Bend, Indiana, 46614. My wife Jackie and I own the property directly adjacent to the properties in question. 24 hours ago, if you had asked, I would have not even said that I was going to be here. But recently we came into information along the lines of which Mr. Sheffmeyer just spoke, that a substantial portion of acreage, namely 105 acres with more apparently looking at being acquired, has been acquired at a point very adjacent to the 23 acres in question here. It's been acquired, as I understand, for a dairy or cattle operation, and that would be of less concern were it not for the history of the property in question. I've lived there for 40 years, and what I've tried to do is be a good neighbor to everybody, including the connects and everybody around me. So it was with some reluctance that I showed up today. But I, like Don, am exceedingly concerned about what might happen to those 23 acres. And I say that because cattle formerly were there when I lived there, and they got out on multiple occasions, and they trampled my property and made gigantic holes that took years to recover from. Ended up in my pond in my driveway. On a couple of occasions, I had to go out and actually help round them up. And if you look at me, you'll notice I am not a cowboy, okay? But at the end of the day, that was the havoc that got wreaked by having cattle close by. So this is not some random speculation that this perhaps could happen. My larger concern is, given that property, and that property right now is not a recreational property. I want to be clear. There's a lot of clutter and a lot of former cattle stuff in there, concrete, wood. There's old washing machines and dryers and detritus from apartments. It's a mess. Nobody's going to have recreation back on that 23 acres that I'm aware of. And I think that's commonly known in the area. So the deeper concern here is, it's fine for you to say, well, nobody's going to build upon it, but they've got 150 feet as proposed of access along Orange Road, and it would be an easy matter to extend the cattle, the land buying that's currently going on to encompass that property. And the last thing I'd want to do is to think that I somehow got duped into agreeing to a land transfer, agreeing to a situation in which land ultimately got transferred, which is very close to my house and constantly in view, and to recognize that that potentially could happen. So I guess the bottom line is to conclude is simply this. We would want to know that there is some very, very strong legal assurance that something of that nature could not happen to that property. If it's left alone, as much of a mess as it is, if it's left alone as it is now, absolutely, we can live with that. But we just sense, and Don expressed it as well, I think, that maybe there's more to this than meets the eye, and somebody should be aware of this, and these objections that we have should at least be considered. So I will leave it at that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else present wishing to speak against this? Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Karen Sheffmeyer. I live at 63262 Orange Road. I have to say I was going to speak, but I think the two people before me spoke so well and brought up some great points. And so I just want to go on the record that I oppose the request here. And I've lived there a long time. I'm from the country. I was raised on a tree farm. So I appreciate wanting to do nice things to the land. But I just oppose what the suggestion is to give this variance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone present that wishes to speak against this proposal? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Yes. You have the floor.
I'm going to bore everybody at the end of a meeting, a very long meeting already, with a little bit of history. This piece of property back in 1977 and before was owned by Merle Summers. Anybody who remembers Merle Summers know that he sat in that chair right there in the middle at these Board of Zoning Appeals meetings. Merle was privy to information that the zoning ordinance was about to change. And as a result, Merle came in here to an attorney, not to our office at that time, but to an attorney, and he split his property into 10-acre pieces prior to the 20-acre ordinance going into effect. Now, at that point in time, Merle had approximately between 9 and 11 10-acre pieces of property that he had in his hot little fist, ready to sell the moment the 20-acre ordinance went into effect. Didn't go quite the way Merle thought it would. And it wasn't until Mr. and Mrs. Connect came along and wanted to live on this property. They didn't want any of the prepackaged 10 or combination of 10-acre parcels that Merle had for sale. Mr. and Mrs. Connect came through and specifically designated the piece of property that they wanted. And if you look, the angling line on the north side of Mr. and Mrs. Connect's piece of property, where the house is located, is the south line of where Merle's house was located on Orange Road. The line that borders the east side of the Connect property was Merle's rear line. And it follows some fences that jog around on Merle's property and then went straight to the west, south, and then on back out to Orange Road. This was what the Connects wanted to buy from Merle. And this is what Merle sold them in 1987. They were there long before the Sheffmeyers were there. They were long before Mr. Sitley was there. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That may not be the case. But these folks, the Sitleys and the Sheffmeyers, all went out and occupied that area in about the same time frame. But the fact of the matter is that whether they're aware of it or not, the Sheffmeyers and the Sitleys could have been dealing with 10 owners across the street or something similar to that, rather than what the Connects are dealing with here. They are asking for the split of this property or variances that will allow the split so that if they need to, they could sell the house off separate from the land, and the land would be able to be held by the trust and the family members that remain. The area residents are probably a little nervous about a large cattle operation moving in there, but that has nothing to do with what the Connects are proposing. We ask your consideration. Thank you.
If I may, staff.
Questions, please.
Yeah, staff, a little quiz time here. Because I think the public comments, I really take that to heart, and that matters. And this could be based on conjecture or just coffee talk or whatever, but we've got some people that are concerned. So I just wrote down a couple of questions. If say there was 200 acres being bought up that's contiguous with this remaining 23 or whatever, and somebody wanted to put a confined operation back in there, you don't just go do that, right? You have to get permits and you have to go through a public process, and it's not just a by right thing, correct?
You can have up to
It's definitely not by right. It depends on where it qualifies in state law in terms of a confined feeding operation versus a confined animal. CFO versus this, yeah.
And there's been a recent state change, where some are CAFO size CFOs, but regardless, there's a approval process that either starts with the health department or with IDEM.
IDEM, yeah.
There are spacing requirements and additional requirements, like from a jurisdiction. I'd have to review those and put them in your packet.
Okay. Let me ask the question, kind of a follow-up, or ask the same question a different way. Whether this split happened or not, would that affect the outcome if some corporation wanted to do that?
We don't have enough information to be able to say that right now on the floor. I mean, there would be an approval process for that they would need to follow for whatever the proposed use is, but
Sure.
I would have to look at I can't answer that.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is whether and I don't know what the acreages are, whether this is 23, whatever, with 150 feet of frontage, or 26 acres with the house still on it. Would that make any difference with what the neighbors seem to be potentially concerned about? It doesn't seem to me that it would.
Just kind of briefly glancing at the various statutes about confined feeding. So, take this as I looked it up very quickly, sort of an answer. It looks like confined feeding operations are mostly defined by number of animals, not so much size of land.
Okay.
Which to me would indicate that it wouldn't matter.
Right. It's just, there's going to be a house on there or there isn't. Correct?
Well, that also goes back to the whole theme of today's meeting. Are they gonna have to come back to us for approval? It's not currently in the way it's drawn, meeting the requirements for a buildable lot. So it becomes an outlot by default. What I was doing during the public testimony is looking at the ownership of the adjacent parcels.
Mhm.
If it is not a commitment that it has to be an outlot, if it is then combined with some other tract of land to get the frontage to get the frontage and the acreage both, then yeah, it can get platted as a lot, not an outlot through the plat committee with no public process. That's why in the former petition, there was a recommendation that it be a commitment, because if we're saying, yes, this is a non-buildable outlot, if it meets the requirements, it can go to plat committee and be a buildable lot with no public notice.
How would that happen with only 150 feet
It
of
won't
frontage?
in this unless they were able to combine it with other acreage. And I was looking to see what the ownership
Like Merle
was.
Summers' old house?
The other way is, if we're looking at it as a zoning lot, are there lots or a combination of lots to the rear along Pine where you could get the frontage?
Oh, sure, right.
See, so
Right.
it's very complex.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, you're saying that if this lot stays the exact same way it is,
I don't think that changes their
it doesn't,
concerns.
right, right.
I-
Because they still
I-
could have, you could
I
still,
don't- I don't see how it matters.
well, but they would still have to go through either the process both ways to be able to try and do something on that land other than live there. Right?
Well, I guess more importantly, I'm just trying to take the comments seriously, and if somebody was gonna come in there and put a confined feeding operation up, they could still do it if there's a house out front.
They could.
So,
But either way
Yeah.
this would go, they would have to come get special use or special exemption to be able to do that. You wouldn't have to either way? No.
I don't think so.
The reason why I'm wavering on the animal feeding operation is that there's spacing requirements for corporate limits of a town and a boundary of any residential zoning district. And then there's spacing requirements, for the structures themselves.
Mhm.
And does the changing of the lot lines affect the ability to meet setbacks or like to build a building
If
that
anything, it
would
might
be
hurt it.
spacing? What?
If anything, it might make it harder.
It would, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
potentially.
right. I'm good.
Do you feel that we need to move forward, or do you think we need more information from you?
Staff provided a favorable recommendation on this petition without without the suggestion of a written commitment restricting the use, because as it is currently, it doesn't meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. If you wanted to take that a step further for added assurances based on the public comment you heard today, you could require a commitment that it remain an unbuildable outlot.
Well, that's what you guys have in your staff report.
No, we just had it as a recommendation of
Because of the
approval.
frontage.
No. In the first paragraph of the staff analysis.
Donnie's right. It is mentioned in the actual narrative, but it's not
It's
listed.
just
in
not
the
on that
conditions
second
recommended
page.
at the end.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
So I guess what I'm confused is if we request this condition, then they would still have to be some approval process to undo what we're putting in commitment in, correct?
If it's a written commitment, yeah.
Right, so this would basically ease their concerns.
If
Correct.
If we put in there that it was an outlaw.
Unbiddable outlot.
With written commitments,
With
yeah.
a written
written
commitment that it not be built on.
I'm comfortable.
It's right there, Donnie. Bust it out. You're right there, man.
Okay, so Donnie Ritzmile, make a motion that we approve the variance as requested on the condition that the remaining balance of the land is designated as an unbuildable outlot in the subdivision process and remain so as an unbuildable lot,
As a written commitment.
as a written commitment.
Lance Roush, second.
Call for the vote, please.
Down the road.
Mr. Schaefer,
No.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the area board of zoning appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variance is granted subject to written commitment, that the lot will remain an outlot with unbuildable.
Sadly, I know you all thought we were done, but we still have to go back to number three.
Three.
Three, but
Three.
Good petitions are.
Petitioner is online.
Great.
delightful.
That was the easiest.
Location 17835 Edgewood Walk. Owner Lori Sue Presson. Requested action. Variance number 1 from section 154.070 sub C 1D1A to allow a 6-foot privacy fence in the front yard of a lot with 3 lot lines where 3 feet is permitted. Zoning R single family district county. Before we do go any further, Lori did mention she's having problems with her microphone. Let me try and unmute her and see if that helps.
They really see things now. Like magic.
Yeah, what is that about?
Never.
I think that worked, Lori. Can you hear us? Are you able to speak?
I noticed you put it down. Do you want to break it?
I forgot.
If
to
you're
men-
saying something, we can't hear you. So can you type into the chat whether you think that you're working?
Where? The short one.
Wire loose somewhere. The wire.
She's
Oh,
in
look
there.
at that. Presentation came up. She says that her mic is working and that she can type, but I don't know if we can hear her.
Have anything to add?
Do you think that if you could do you have a phone available that you could call in with the phone number? Because we can't hear you.
She does.
Okay, go ahead and do that really quick. And then if we can hear you that way, sign out of it in the app. She needs to be able to hear it.
No, I need to hear them.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
You could probably go quicker with your clicker.
Oh.
Since she's having technical difficulties and we're gonna wait for her to call in on the phone, we'll move to the agenda item that's a discussion about the fences.
Unless we just want to do findings of fact first.
These are the non-public hearing items.
What, were there corrections?
Oh, yes. Donnie had a number of corrections to the findings of fact.
Now we're on findings
Oh,
of
about
the
what?
fact for the, Wednesday, April twelfth,
I
two
think you know,
thousand
if you-
twenty-three meeting.
For 28486 New Road, we had Sydney Schaefer as yes, and he should have been no. For 31479 Tyler Road, we had Sydney as no, and he should have been yes. For
I'm just thinking-
67101 Sage Road, we had Sydney Schaefer as no, and he should have been yes. And for 15684 State Road 23, we had him as no, and he should have been yes.
Wow.
I'm not sure why that.
Can you show those to Tim? Because it's always Sydney for some reason. I have to fix those like every week.
Why is it so Sid centric?
Hello?
Oh, here we
Okay,
go.
can hear you. So if you
Sounds
could sign out of it in the app and we can hear you on the phone.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Name your, name and address, please.
Lori Preston, 17835 Edgewood Walk, South Bend, Indiana, 46635.
Thank you. Anything you would like to mention to us regarding this?
Just so you know, the staff did give their presentation earlier on this one and they are recommending approval.
Do you have anything to add?
Do you have anything to add to that? We're ready to vote.
The fence line that I'm actually trying to put in is for my 3 dogs. There is a situation with the neighbor. They have 2 larger dogs and it's interrupting my dog, actually area to be in.
Thank you.
Or-
That's wonderful.
No question.
That's all I have.
Okay, now we can, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to, excuse me, anybody on Zoom?
No.
Anyone wishing to speak against this petition, please come forward. Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Thank you. Now, do we have any motion or do you have some questions?
Donnie missed, I'll make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please.
Go Bellman.
Reading of the.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Velman,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, finds this variance is granted and will issue written findings of the fact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on findings of the facts based on, can we go by what you said already, Rodney, regarding the, correction?
So yeah, you just would vote, the motion would be to approve the findings of facts as corrected.
I make a motion to approve the findings of the facts as corrected.
Donnie Ritzmell, second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign. Motion passed. Thank you.
We have other discussion item.
Another.
We're not done yet.
This is fence thing.
Yeah.
Gonna take more than 15 minutes?
No.
Okay,
No, it
let's
shouldn't.
go.
Discussion of proposed zoning ordinance text amendment for corner lot fences.
So as you know, you guys see a lot of these every month. So DJ asked us to look into changing them, making some ordinance or making some adjustments. So we're bringing our draft to you. It's at the end of your packet if you want to
Is
look.
this our call?
No.
No.
This is the APCs.
Then,
Because you guys get to see these so often.
so we're
We felt
weighing in
like-
on the draft.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We felt like you guys had a valuable opinion to provide before it formally begins
Oh, we have
the
opinions
amendment
right here.
process.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what opinions are like.
Be better if I had the PowerPoint, but that's okay. All right, so what we have is corner lots become their own thing. They can't encroach on the minimum side yard abutting a street. So what that means is they can't come any closer than you would allow a accessory building, basically. So you treat the one front as a side, except it has a side setback. The fence cannot extend past the rear building line of the primary dwelling unit on the property, so it has to start behind, like at the back of the house and go back. And then it has to comply with the other applicable requirements of the section, which is mostly just the clear sight triangle thing. That's for corner lots. We also added a thing that exempts fences located in the agricultural district, except for they can't be in the clear sight triangle. That's an issue we're kind of running into.
John, would you like to add that?
Oh, yeah.
Line with the Farm Bureau.
Farm Bureau is
We'll make them
number
realize.
9 on their.
Yeah, they
2022
don't
policy.
like the fence.
I told them you guys never see this stuff. This is stuff that.
Now, none of this
Farm
means
Bureau
that they
goes
don't
through
need a
every year.
permit to build the fence.
Yeah, they
They
still need a permit,
To build the fence.
but they can build as,
Now, does this apply to, certain sides or does that vary too?
so the size, again,
When I
They're-
say height, I'm talking height.
yeah, as it's written now, it does exempt them from all the provisions of the chapter, so it could be as tall as they would like. We can change that. That's how it is right now.
Who can be as tall as fences they
In
like?
the ag
In the
area.
ag district only. And that's only, as long as it's not interfering with the clear sight area requirement.
It's a deer fence up.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
There's also provisions that exempt wireless telecommunication facilities. And then the other change we're making is for properties in the industrial district. The fence in the front yard can be up to 6 feet is a privacy, just so it can screen kind of
Buildings.
can screen any buildings or things that are outside. You'll see a petition next month about this.
You're saying in residential area, they could have a fence up to 6 feet tall.
No, in industrial, sorry.
What,
if I
for the
misspoke.
residential area, we're talking about corner lots like you guys see all the time.
Mhm.
And what they're saying essentially is that when they would come in and say, I want to build a fence, the zoning administrator would say, well, right now you technically have 2 front lots, but for the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the fencing requirements, this lot, this side is going to be a side, not a
Oh,
front.
yeah.
Even
Okay.
though it would technically both be a front, they now can have the ability at the level of the zoning department to say, we're treating one as a front and one as a side.
The other
So the
change,
6 foot would be allowed on the side.
Okay,
Yeah.
Not the
but
front
who's
side.
gonna decide what the side is?
That's
so
that.
that's the other change that's not reflected here.
Yeah, if somebody could,
The property owner is gonna be able to make that determination, which one they want to count as the
Well, I
side.
was gonna say, right
Well,
now.
I'm
it's
good with that.
Airbnb.
Oh, that's right.
Step back and say, for lots, for corner lots, the property owner may select one side to be as the front, which then we treat the other side like a side, and then it allows it, an accessory structure to go, well, or a primary structure even too, to be within 8 feet, right, John?
Yes.
So we're gonna change that to be consistent with the language back here and be that the property owner, because I don't necessarily want to get into fights with people about what I would determine their front to be. We'll let them select what they want their front to be.
So that's gonna be based on when they improved it and put a structure on it, what they determined the front was gonna be based on their address. I'm looking at you too, Bob.
Well, if you give the property owner the ability to make the decision, they
Yeah.
get the ability to make the decision.
Yeah, but it's made when they improve the land, not, they don't get to change it later and say, well, I want the front yard to be this, where the driveway is to be the side yard. That's what I'm worried about.
Well, if they tried to change it, then they'd have to take the fence down.
So if they have a corner lot and they construct the house and they're meeting the 35-foot front setback on the one property line and they're meeting the 8 on the other, we're not going to allow them to call that 8 foot their front for the purposes of the
Right, because they
fence.
would have already made the determination of which one is the front based on their setback decision. Because the front lot line already has this provision in it.
Correct.
I think you just need to watch your wording, to your point, I think.
Yeah, you
It's a
guys
draft.
spend a lot of time looking at this stuff and I suspect you nailed it, but
So
it sounds,
all you would have to do to fix that and make it clear would be when you change it to say as determined by the zoning administrator, you would change it to say as determined by the property owner must accord with determination
where it
for
is.
setback
Yeah, I know where it is.
requirements.
Let them know what.
well, I'm just picturing like Edgewood, okay? That's all in our mind.
That would probably still end up requiring.
Yeah.
They had 3.
Okay, assume it wasn't that weird curve, okay?
They had
The house is 8 feet from the west's property line,
Mhm.
okay? But they've got these 2 other streets.
Let's talk
What
about
I'm concerned about is that they will want to put a 6-foot fence in what we would all consider their front yard.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where I think you need to just make sure that doesn't happen.
They just need to put language in there that says that it has to be the front lot line and the setbacks have to be the same, like something to that effect. It has to be the same. The decision is the decision for both of them.
Okay, you want us to be consistent with how we're applying.
Yeah, so you would say that whatever they decide is the front lot line for the purposes of the setback is the
Yeah.
same as the front lot line for the purposes of the fence.
When you say setback for the structure.
For the
Right.
front lot line,
Yeah, 35 feet.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because if there's no structure, then there's no, you see what I'm saying? So I would put structure in there or improvements. The noun would be improvements, right? At the end of Brandy's sentence.
you just want it to accord with the front lot line determination. That's like end of story. That's it.
Well,
Will the front lot line ever be?
unless somebody puts a fence up before they build their house.
will the front
Then
lot-
then they have essentially picked what they're doing.
Yes,
Now, they get
yes.
variance because they're
yes.
establishing the accessory structure
Yeah,
before
That's why
they're-
you guys get the big bucks. That's good stuff.
Do you like this? Okay, other than Lance's.
Yeah, but if they own a property next door, they can put up an
Do
accessory.
you guys,
structure.
do you think it's gonna alleviate that much?
I think it will.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the other thing you want to consider is easements. What easements are on the property?
It already
I've-
can't go. We have a provision that, structures can't go in these.
I've seen fences on easements.
I'm sure you have.
Well, then the answer to that is when you see one, you report it to them and then they can
Yeah,
go.
right. That's that old, if nobody says anything, all kinds of weird stuff
Well, I
exists
just
out
think
there.
that we want to make sure that the homeowner understands that.
Well, and part of that is, that's, I think, part of why they started requiring permits.
Correct.
So,
Cause it was so pervasive, it felt like we were having to bring you all fences after the fact. That is the worst case scenario, because then somebody gets up in front of you and says, I just spent $21,000 on a fence.
Yeah.
And
so I think the combination of requiring permits and making this change, you will see very few fences.
Now, the commercial one, I think you ought to give them a little bit more leeway as far as the height. Because it may be for security reasons, they need barbed wire and all that on the top, depending on what the industry is.
Well, they
Could be
didn't do it for
CBD.
commercial, but they did it for industrial.
because
Yeah.
we have seen, I came from, you guys know the city of Elkhart, and
Nobody, you heard me.
you're fencing in your storage lot in the front yard for security reasons.
Right.
Right, and we can't do that right now in our industrial. district. We have to send it to you all for a variance.
And they should be allowed to for security reasons if it's commercial industry. And the other question is what you do about the river, Sean?
I thought someone else.
So.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll then draft a formal text amendment and place it on the APC agenda for June.
Yeah, why not?
There you go.
Why not?
Let me know. Do we want to adjourn before he leaves?
Yes, we need to adjourn.
All right,
Lance Roush, I move we adjourn.
second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I have my pen?
Thank you very much for your attention.
Does the town of Osceola comply with the same fence ordinances as the county?
They have their own fence ordinances.
Okay.
I think they're pretty close to what we have. in
Because there's a
place.
corner lot with